Morning everyone, I hope we're well and keeping busy. So we'll have a look at our learning for today. So we're going to start as we normally do with our reading, and we're going to carry on with our Bad Beginnings Lemony Snicket book. I hope we're enjoying that book, and if you are, I think you can find it on Netflix as a programme, but you just need to make sure you ask for permission from your parents before you watch that. So on to our reading skill for today. We're going to be looking at prediction. It's one of the few skills that we haven't really looked at last week. So we're going to carry on and have a go at this. And it's all about what you think might happen or what you think is going to happen. So these are some of the types of questions that you could get with prediction type questions, and then we'll have a look at some examples and then have a go at solving some of these with a particular text in a second. So as I said before, there's a lot of what do you think type phrases in these questions, and therefore there's no right necessarily or wrong answer, but you must give good reasons from the text. And you can see on that second one down, it says, do you think that this character will change their behaviour in future? Why? So therefore, what that's prompting you to do, and what these always prompt you to do, is to give evidence from the text. So again, as you're doing with explain and inference questions, really important skill to get that evidence to prove your reasoning. So we'll have a look at this text first. This is just an extract from a book. And if you pause the video now and have a read through, we'll have a look at this together and go through some questions. So let's have a look at some of these prediction questions together. And the first one we're going to look at is, what do you think Katana will do with the ground topaz? Why do you think this? Second one we're going to look at is, do you think that Katana will try to find fire opals? You've got to say yes or no, and then whichever answer you choose, you need to explain your answer using evidence from the text. So again, there's no right or wrong answer with that one, but you need to make sure that evidence is there to back up your argument. And then the third one we're going to look at is, based on this section of the opening chapter, what do you think this book will be about? Okay, so again, what do you think is often the phrase with prediction style questions. So let's look at the first one together then. So you can see the text is back there for you. And the question was, what do you think Katana will do with the ground topaz? Why do you think this? So use our skills to find that word topaz first. And you can see that it says topaz was rare. So with that in mind, carry on reading and try and find a little bit more information about topaz itself. And it says here, look, rare enough to make powerful weapons, rare enough to make katana and a brittle star gild, almost unstoppable. So in that sense, it looks like they're using these types of gems for weapons. So I would say that she's going to try and make a weapon and to make herself more powerful. Let's look at the second question then. So this one was, do you think that Katana will try to find fire opals? You need to say yes or no, but then you need to explain your choice using evidence from the text. So if I was to answer this one, my first probable answer would be yes. And the reason I would say that is because she's hoping to make herself unstoppable. She's obviously part of an army style or cult that needs weapons to protect themselves. So I would suggest that she wants to try and be as unstoppable as possible, and therefore she would need the fire opal weapons for that. So I think she's going to go and look for them so that she can be revered, if that phrase at the bottom, revered across the white desert. So that would be my answer for that. Another alternative though is if you were to put no, your answer could be that she may not try and find the fire opals, and your reasoning behind that would be because they are very rare and there may not be any point looking for them. So that would be your answer for no, really, with your evidence. And let's look at the third question then. It says, based on this section of the opening chapter, what do you think this book will be about? So again, we're looking at this bottom paragraph, but we're also including this final sentence. It says what she wouldn't give to be that leader. So what she's hoping to try and achieve is to be that leader that's unstoppable, and therefore my prediction for this one would be I think the book will be about her quest to find fire opals and to make fire opal weapons. So on to our maths then, and we're going to carry on again with our decimal numbers this week. And today we're looking at sequences, and we're going to find out first what sequences actually means and just remind ourselves of that. So a sequence is a string of numbers which show a regular pattern. So for example, one of the most simplest sequences, and you see them every day, is just all the numbers counting through. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what we would say is the pattern or the rule for that would be to add 1 each time. So between the numbers, it's adding 1 each time. So let's think about solving some of these, and obviously they're going to involve decimal numbers. So when we solve any sequence, it doesn't matter if they're decimal or not, we must find out what that pattern or rule actually is. And if we look at, we've got 3 numbers on here. We've got 1.32, 1.42 and 1.52. So what we can sort of begin to think about here is the units doesn't change each time, and the hundredths doesn't change. The 2 remains the same. There's always 2 hundredths. The only one that does change is the tenths. So we can see that it goes from 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. So you can see that that tenths there is changing. So if we were to think about our pattern for this one, you can see that it increases by 1/10 each time. So our next number must be 1.62, and then our last number to fill in would be 1.72. Okay, so nice and simple, that one. On to the next one. So this time though, slightly different. You can see that the tenths column changes and the hundredths must change, but this is where we get a slightly trickier one, because actually it's only got 3/10 1.3. So that change there, we need to try and find out what's happened. So one of the ways you can do that is look at the next one if you're not sure what's happened. But you can see that if we went from 1.3 to 1.45, then it actually increased by 0.15. So between the 1.15 and the 1.3, what must have happened is, at least at some point, there must have been a 500th added to create that, to round it up, basically to have a 0 in that hundredths column, which 1.3 has in a way. So what we've decided then on this one is that it's going up in 0.15. So if we add 0.15 onto 1.45, we'll have, if we add the tenth on first, have 1.55 plus another hundredth, we'd actually have 1.6. And then nice and easy for the next one, if we add 1.6 to 0.15, it's going to be 1.75. Now, one of the little tricks that you can do is to imagine, and if the decimal numbers are quite confusing for you, you could imagine it for now as a 3-digit number. So that would turn our sequence into 115, 130 and 145, and then you just need to make sure you put the decimal number back in, because obviously you've multiplied it by 100 each time, so you need to divide it back again if you're going to try that strategy. But that's one way that you might find slightly easier, and then actually what you add on is 15 rather than 0.15. That might help some of you working these out. Okay, and then one other possible problem that you might come across with these types of sequences is when we have to cross the whole. So you can see that our number sequence here, it's climbing quite rapidly, and we've got at that point, it's gone from, just in 3 changes in the numbers, it's gone from 1.05 all the way to 1.95. So obviously our next number after 1.95 is going to be going across into the next unit. So we're going to go into 2 in that units column eventually. So the best thing that we can do for this again is to work out our sequence, and you can see that it's 0.45. Again, check it with both of the numbers first. See those 2 arrows, check it with both, make sure you've got it, and make sure you know how much it's going up in. And then once you've found that, the easiest way that we can do this one is, if it's going up in 0.45, if we add our hundredths on first, or our 500ths, to 1.95, we get to 2. And then if we add the remaining 4/10ths on, so we've taken the 500ths off 0.45, we get 4/10ths, and we're going to add that to 2, so it would be 2.4. And then this one isn't going to cross the whole, so it's nice and easy. 2.4 plus 0.45 would be 2.85. Okay, so have a go at those. Try and remember to work out the pattern first, and then try and solve the missing numbers. Keep going with your times table rock stars. I know there was a few battles last week. I think the whole school were involved, so keep a lookout for those. And I'll be looking for the most valued player in one of my shout out videos maybe this week. Okay, so on to our writing then, and we're going to be concentrating for the first 3 days on some grammar and punctuation skills, just to recap and refresh our brains on that. And we're going to be looking at word classes today. So word class, you can see there's a picture there of a dictionary, and in every dictionary it tells you what type of word it is. Remember, all words have a particular class. Okay, so as I said before, they all the words can be categorized into word classes, or sometimes called parts of speech. But what is important to remember is it's very difficult with a word on its own to decide if it's a noun, a verb, or adjective, because sometimes the sentence will determine what type of word that is. So we need to be really careful. You have to read these in the context of a sentence to decide what word classes they are. So we're going to go through each one of these with a sentence, and we're just going to pick out the different word classes in that same sentence, just to refresh our brains on word classes and make sure that we're clear before we start our activity today. So if we look at verbs, verbs describe what a person does, and often called a doing word. So that's probably the easiest way for you to remember that. And there's some examples: run, hit, rain, be, seem, become. So really simple ones like be are often missed as well. So in this sentence, we're going to look at this sentence for all of the ones that we look at to begin with. So we're going to go through this same sentence each time. Although he was tired, the boy ran quickly into his bedroom to read a book. So we're going to find out the words where he's doing something. So some slightly trickier with some of these. So you can see that further on in the sentence we've got ran and to read. would be one. But sometimes missed out is that was there, that was tired. So that was is actually a verb, obviously past tense, but that creates that verb there. And then we've said ran and obviously to read. Okay, so to read, that is actually in present tense there. Okay, so that's our doing words, that's our verbs done. Okay, on to nouns. So nouns are basically things or objects. Now you can have different types of nouns. So if you see those examples I've given you there, London, that would be a proper noun. But for now, we're not going to worry too much about that. We're just going to make sure we know what nouns are. So same sentence again. Let's look at if we can find the nouns in this. So we're looking for things or objects. So although he was tired, there was nothing in that bit. But the young boy, so boy will be a noun there, ran quickly into his bedroom. So he's gone in somewhere, so that's going to be another one in bedroom. And then to read a book. So if he's reading a book, again, that would be our noun. Okay, so let's look at adjectives this time. So adjectives are words that describe a noun. It's really important that we understand it describes a noun and we're not just saying that it's a describing word. And there's 5 examples there for you. Often red or other colours are adjectives. So let's look at our sentence then. And we're looking for something that describes the noun. So if you remember back to our nouns, we had boy, book and bedroom. And the only adjective we've got on there is how the boy is described, and that is young. Okay, so on to adverbs. Adverbs describe how something is done. So this basically they're like a mixture between adjectives and verbs. They describe the verb. Often they end in ly words, but not always. So let's have a look in this example. We can see here, it's actually the word that we're looking for. How did he run? Well, he ran quickly. So that would be our adverb there. Because it's an ly word, it's often really easy to find, but you've got to be careful because there may be more than one adverb, maybe that it doesn't end in an ly word, so you've got to be really careful with that. On to prepositions or prepositions. They describe the position of something, the time it happened, or the way that it is done. So often quite tricky, again depends on the sentence and in the context. So you can see you've got under, between, on, after and by. So they would be your prepositions there. So although he was tired, the young boy ran quickly into his bedroom to read a book. So same sentence again. So this one, it's going to be into. Okay, so it's where something happened. He went into his bedroom. Okay, so conjunctions, they just words that connect phrases or sentences. And in our sentence here, we can see that it's actually at the beginning. So it's a subordinate clause there, and it starts with that conjunction. And that would actually be called a subordinating conjunction. Okay, so on to determiners. These normally introduce a noun. They make it specific. They give a bit of clarity around that noun. Often they can be numbers too. So 3 children or 4 children, they would be classed. The numbers there would be, because they come before the noun, they're often determiners too. So let's have a look in this one here. This same sentence again. We would have the young boy and we would have a book. And then into pronouns. Pronouns are used to replace the noun. That is a specific person or thing. Okay, you see those examples there: she, him, mine, we, I, us, me and herself. And again, these all have different types as possessive pronouns. But for now we're just looking at pronouns, so don't worry too much about the categories of those things. So let's have a look at this sentence again. So you can see here there's not going to be many, it's a very short sentence, but you can see we've got he and his would be our pronouns for that. Okay, so if you have a look at this sentence now. After a long wait for the postman, Joe quickly dashed outside and picked up his parcel. And what we're going to do with this one is we're going to have, if you pause the video in a second, we're just going to have a look at trying to identify these 8 different word classes within this sentence, just as we did in the example before, but all in one go this time. Okay, so let's look at the nouns. Now remember, they are objects or things, and we can see that we've got Joe and outside, and then actually in this one it's a long wait, so that's actually a thing that he's doing, it's a wait, so that was actually a noun there. It could, in most cases, it could just be a verb, but in this one it is actually a noun, and we've got parcel and postman. Okay, so there are nouns for that one. So if we look at verbs next, with their things, remember they're doing words. We've got picked and dashed. And then if we look at adjectives, we've just got that long wait there, describes the wait. Adverb, we've got quickly, because it goes before the verb look, so it describes that verb, dashed. And then pronouns next, we've got his, parcel there. So rather than saying Joe's parcel, it says his. That replaces the word saying Joe again. And then preposition or preposition, we've got after. And we've only got one conjunction in, which is that simple and. And then our determiners, remember, they normally go before a noun. So we've got a and the on in this particular one. So hopefully that's just giving you a quick recap of those word classes, and you've got a similar task in your packs to have a go at.